Good morning. We have cleaned up the stage without such a scene as we had in the first session. Yesterday, in the same room, in a different configuration, we had ceremonial opening of Bendukidze Free Market Center. Today, we would like to continue this topic. We shall review a brief documentary about Bendukidze, and Ukraine. After that, the experts of our center will discuss the directions of thoughts and reforms we are working on, and we have a position about. It's a small cameral proposal of the meeting about how we can see what we can see as a way towards dismantling of the social state. So can we do that? Can we switch on the movie? Let us watch the movie and then get back to the discussion. The famous reformist is based on his personality. Himself and reform coincided. He was most suitable for this role. Well, in business, he reached everything. What we have chosen in that field, it was obvious that in business it's boring. Business is boring. Business and personal money was not of interest. He had business experience. Uniquely, he was not a businessman. He was a very soft person. However, when it was about real business, he was rather tough. The disaster of Ukraine would mean his personal disaster. It would mean that that Georgia will find itself alone, facing the empire. Therefore, what Ukrainians are rather slow, it was of concern to him. When I was 15, my grandmother took me to Kiev. It was the first city I saw after Tbilisi. It was in 1961. My uncle worked in Kiev on the aviation plant. Since that time, I liked that city. It was my personal part that helped me. He started his career as a biologist, as a scientist. It was also very unusual. He didn't graduate from the biological department. And then he made a career of the biologist very quickly. He was a prominent personality, as a biologist, as an entrepreneur, as a reformist. I passed my career, actually, without being a junior researcher. I was senior lab assistant. Immediately after that, I was offered to head the laboratory. It was an opportunity to make money. I wanted to make a business, wanted to make money. As a laboratory could exist for that money, for the profits of such business. This was the beginning. Mikhail Saakashvili invited him Minister for Economics of Georgian government. It was a new chapter in his life. He was a large-scale post-Soviet businessman. His name was famous. And then it was very little money. Everybody else became oligarchs, billionaires. He didn't have a billion. He didn't have half a billion. He was interested in what he was doing, to change the society for the better. He did privatization in Georgia. He could earn billions. However, he did the best to make sure nobody makes any money except for the budget, the people and the investors, to make sure it works for the economy. Everybody was tired to live in the lies, falsified elections, corruption, inefficiency. to understand that the only way for the kids, for the young generation, is to leave the country, that there was no good life, the failures only remain, the good people leave. This caused revolution of 2003. When the elections was falsified, it caused anger. It was the first colored revolution. Also, the mandate, it was not for particular reform. He didn't say, please do like this. He was saying, please do something. You can do more. You can change your life. Of course, the people thought they are boring and so on. They want peaceful life. But we did what we had. We improved Georgian economy twice. If you count in dollars, so 2003, nominally it was more than twice increased. Now it's a different life. There is a new generation who does not understand the problems that existed before. They did not understand what corruption is about. They never saw it. They don't understand what is impolite policemen. They never saw the one. And this is the way we shall develop, shall keep living. Corruption must be destroyed. It's hazardous. First we destroy it, and then we can think what to do next. Price of corruption is sovereignty of Ukraine. This is main problem. The other problems can be resolved. We remember the former Soviet Union. Who else remembers? There were stores with the name meat, and there was no meat inside. The question is the former Soviet Union, were there any stores of meat? There were buildings with the logo meat, and there were no stores to sell meat. Something which pretends to be something else. Their stores named meat were simulators. No meat was sold. If you close the store with the logo meat, there was no meat inside. What will happen to sales of meat? Nothing.
If you close the fire supervision, which takes bribes, and fire prevention is not their business at all, what will happen with fires? You're right. He has clear understanding of any problem. It is simple. I appreciate when someone can describe a complex situation simply. Woke up as a city, there was no architectural supervision. If something just collapses, there is capital punishment. This was supervision in all times. In the 19th century, if you build a bridge, and the builder is standing under the bridge, and the train goes on the bridge, and if it collapses, the builder has to be there. This is why the bridges never collapsed, because the builder has to stay under the bridge at the test. What Kacha did in the previous year, he tried to explain to Ukrainians that you have to live observing the rules of multiplication table and rules of deduction and summing up, to live according to a means. Until Ukraine starts living according to its means, until the grounds for quick economic growth are established, it will be hard for us to start building a successful country. If someone tells you these Europeans so frugal, they turn on the heat and they use the blankets and they wake up and it is cold because they try to save heat in the night. This is why they live so good, because they save actually. They have huge expenditures of the state. The public expenditures in Ukraine could have been afforded in some developed European countries. You have expenditures of 48% of GDP, and this is the same as the level in Germany. This is more than in some European countries. This is more than in the United States. This is more than Georgia by 1.5 times. He did his reforms in the country, which is the closest for us in terms of the problems that we're facing when we're urged to take the model of Slovakia or Poland. I suggest not to do it because they went back home. I'm in Europe, and we did not go back home. We have to have a very difficult and complicated way to get there mentally in terms of values. And Georgia is very close to us in this sense. So his view is more important for us than the views of advisors from the World Bank, International Monetary Fund. They underestimate this difference, and he clearly understood it. The problem is there is no real state that is called Ukraine, unfortunately. What really exists, rather it is in the condition incompatible with its existence. As there are external forces that want to destroy this inferior state. I don't want to offend Ukrainian people. They want to stop this existence in this form. The patient is trying to treat himself because there is no one else. There are some neighbors, EU, America. There are good and bad neighbors. Neighbors can give you some words, open the window for you, but the surgery should be done by the patient himself. Ukrainian people should do this surgery, and no one can do it for them. And it is not needed, actually, that someone else does it. And the question is, unless you do surgery for Ukraine, it will not survive. The surgery is complicated, and there is a risk that the patient may die. What shall we do? It's the price Ukraine pays for 20 years of lack of reform, populism, corruption, weak governance, but strong government in terms that the state subjugated everything. The state is everywhere. Ukraine redistributes half of GDP, half of national wealth through the budget. Only a few Western European countries can afford it, like Sweden, Germany, Finland. Many Western European countries cannot afford it, and Eastern European countries, none of them can do it. He believed that radical way, quickness, like cavalry attack, it creates opportunities for victory. This is how he acted. We were told that you have to kill your enemy, hitting them with everything. So you need to hit them with whatever you can. You don't need to think for 20 years about the solutions. You need to act now. Tomorrow will be late. You need to start acting tonight. The only way to continue normal existence is to carry out radical reform, more radical than what we did in Georgia. Your situation is more complicated, it's more difficult. You're in the state of war. In Georgia in 2004, when I became a minister and we started the reforms, we had occupied territories by Russia, just like you have. But our economy was growing before that. And against the backdrop of growing economy, we carried out reforms which gave even greater growth. And your economy is declining this year. And our objective is to suspend this process. You need to stop declining and to go into growth, and under existing model of how the state is built, this is impossible to do. Ukraine has no choice not to do reform. In other countries, if they don't do reform, it's the issue of quicker or lower growth. Ukraine is the only one that has the following dilemma: either you change or die. The direct and lively and effective influence was made by Kacha last year on Ukrainian society, young people, Ukrainian politicians, activists, not political elite, but middle layer. Ukrainian businessmen, he discussed a lot in different audiences, numerous, limited, and his role of the preacher of freedom idea was played brightly by him in the previous year, and his seeds that he sowed, hopefully they will shoot off sooner or later. I meet with people, I have public lectures, sometimes I meet people by chance, sometimes I meet TV presenters on TV and they say something, I feel the huge potential, I feel positive attitude and concern over Ukraine. This should all be translated into political life, into action on the government for Ukraine. What is constitution? There are two approaches to the constitution. There is a royal approach, the king. It's like Spanish system of law, German system. They have the following: I'm the monarch, I'm the sovereign, and I give freedoms to the people. I allow them to do something, and I give some promises. All have the right for work, for rest, for love. All have the right something else like that. I promise you not to charge this and that. This is the approach that is disgusting for me. And you and us, we have this constitution. There is different approach, American approach to the constitution. We, the people, write this constitution to limit the governments so that it cannot do this and that. He was unhappy, he was angry with Ukrainians because they do not deserve what's going on in Ukraine. He demanded that they should be worthy of this process. There is Russian saying and Ukrainian probably, until the roost hits you, you will not start making an effort. So until the thunder strikes, you'll not start doing anything. What do you need to happen to you? Write Putin what he should do to you for you to wake up. What should he do? Thank you. I would like to invite the experts of our center to the podium. The experts who cooperate with our center. The background of creation of our center is quite interesting. It's touchy and it reflects the word Bendukidze in the name. Indeed, Bendukidze have dedicated a lot of time and effort to Ukraine in the previous year. And 3 residents of Kiev, 2 citizens of Ukraine, and me, I used to be the citizen of Russia at the time. Now I'm a citizen of Ukraine. Kacha introduced us, and about 1 year ago, when we came to Tbilisi to his funeral, we looked at each other and we decided that we should not just leave it. We should create the organization which will continue Kacha's case, to promote his ideas, to communicate the projects that we discussed with him, to make the projects that we discussed. In spring, the 3 of us, This includes me, Alexander Daniluk, the deputy head of presidential administration, vice president of Kyiv School of Economy, Yulia Tchkivskaya, and Yulia and Sasha will be here today, participating in our day. Also, Mikhail Saakashvili joined us, and this was an important fundamental factor because yesterday I mentioned that Saakashvili, just like Steve Jobs, have an amazing quality. He creates a reality distortion field around himself. It's the field of distorted reality. And when outside it's a gray, somber day around Misha, there is some different atmosphere. And even in this difficult Ukrainian situation, talking to Misha really charges you. It adds some energy. Yesterday he spoke and he mentioned that Ukraine unfortunately loses 2 years after Maidan, but on the other hand, we see that anyway we have new ideas, new people. I'm pleased to introduce each of our experts. According to the development of our plots, I'd like to give the floor to Sergey Marchenko. We met in autumn last year, and Sergey immediately got involved in the project. Back then it was not Bendukidze Center, but it was inspired by our talks with Bendukidze. It was supported by Bendukidze. It was a project to propose to cut the public expenditures. This work was continued this year. This year, Sergey generalized our previous year's ideas and added some new ideas and drafted the document that was discussed at the highest level. I'd like to give the floor to Sergey. Tell us, please, what should we do with so-called social areas? 10 minutes. Thank you, Volodya. Dear audience, this was an exciting undertaking. Volodya said, let's see what we can cut. I'm not the champion of cutting. I want to look what's not working, what's inefficient, where inefficiency is. And 1 year ago we started this exercise. We looked at the budget, and just the budget was not enough because we have also local budgets. We have social funds, pension funds. We have deficit of Naftogaz, that's a quasi-public deficit, and we understood that we have a huge problem. This year, the redistribution of the budget through GDP is about 55 to 58%. This is the burden that we carry with us. We cannot drop it. We cannot say, let's change something, because it cannot be changed. We have to do something. We have to decide something. When sexual reforms are not moving, why we don't have healthcare reform? The answer is simple. The Minister of Health, just like any other minister, is interested for his system to keep the budget for the next year. When you think about keeping this budget funds, you're not saying about raising efficiencies. You just think about how to preserve the money. And it's very simple to do. It's our healthcare system is financed based on beds, number of beds. And any treatment facility in municipal property, national property, it's all about beds. No one is interested in services. The desire to keep the beds is the key problem. And there are some changes. The institution is changing for the better, but this principle of paternalism, of subsistence, everyone is expecting something from the state, but you need to forget about that, that something owes you something in the area of education and healthcare. Start living and thinking, how would you do, what would you do, and how do you evaluate the situation from the perspective of the consumer of these services. All of you pay for medical care from 30 to 40% of the overall budget. It's not right. You say, okay, I acknowledge that the system is inefficient. There are some money you have to pay to medics, but the salaries of the medics are low. They don't want to treat you for free, and this system is inflated. And these issues are very urgent today. They were not urgent 1 or 2 years ago. Now they are urgent because of tax reform discussions. Everyone is asking, where is the fiscal space? Find the fiscal space, because we cannot find it. And it is nearby. It is obvious. What are the ways? What are the solutions for the problems? First, in the healthcare, we have to make the transition to autonomy of the healthcare facilities. They should stop being budget institutions. They should stop thinking about beds and start thinking about the services. And this will be the impetus to calculate the services, and us as patients, we should go to the healthcare facility with clear understanding why you pay, what you pay, and what the state is paying for you. A question for the audience: do you know your family doctor? Raise your hands if you know your family doctor. About 15 and 20% of the audience. In the right system of healthcare, you cannot get to any other doctor until you go to a family doctor, because your family doctor is the first person that is a filter in the system. I can call some academician of the Medical Academy of Sciences and I'll tell him, I have sneezing, please treat me. He has huge salary, he's thinking something. Why do we create problems in the system? We have many of these problems. Why it is not discussed? It is discussed, but there are some things that are popular and unpopular. Healthcare is the thing which people are afraid to touch. Why? We have to move it forward and to change it. And very quickly, not to take the time of my colleagues, some words about education. It's the same. There are two examples. In Kyiv province, we have two districts, Vyshgorod and Volodar. The cost of the students is different by 10 times, and the number of students is the same. The question is why? No one asks this question. No one is asking who should pay. No one is asking why we should pay. And at this point, I understand that the Ministry of Education is not ready to calculate the social standard for the cost of the students. 70,000 in Chernihiv province, the difference is great in Chernihiv province. The Ministry of Education is not ready to calculate the cost of the students in the secondary schools. It should be some basic level of cost. Let's forget that the state owes you education. Let's say this is the function of local authorities, and let's transfer money to them. Let them support the schools, let them think how to hire teachers, how to create added value for education. The state, in turn, should ask in terms of exams, quality of students, and so on. There are many problems. We're working on that. And the last message, all our guys have the same values. It's logic, it's common sense, rational thinking, and liberal approaches. We see that if you can let it go to the free market, let's do it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sergey. Before I pass the floor to the next speaker, I'd like to ask you the direct question. What you mentioned, this is clear, the structural reforms, change the incentives and motivation system. But tell me about the most severe part of our plan, abolishment of some expenditures that we believe the country cannot afford in this situation. For example, higher education. It's an interesting question, and we have looked into this. You know that 6 billion hryvnias are spent for scholarship. The state pays scholarships to students. It's cool to get a scholarship, but if you take the basic principle, why you pay this scholarship, no one pays a scholarship in the civilized countries. Maybe they pay something, but it's not done en masse. I was a student, I used to get scholarship, but let's refuse from this. As students, you should say, we don't want to get scholarships. Let's use the 6 billion hryvnias to raise some social benefits for the low-income people. This is subjective. If you are healthy, you can work. Maybe you have parents or anyone. anyone can pay a scholarship to you, but it should not be the government. The same is about financing universities. The system is the same. 60% of coverage of young people with higher education. How about quality? Now I'd like to give the floor to the director of our center. We met him not because of a meeting in Bendukidze. It was second turn. Sergey brought Anton Yaschenko to lead our center. Anton is involved in many themes in his life as an expert, civil service in particular. It's an important issue, but there are even more serious and greater issues if you measure it in money. What's that, Anton? Good evening. It's the issue. This issue is energy. I'm glad to greet you at our forum. I'd like to thank you for all the difficulties of lines, queues in the elevators, and all other shortcomings. We'll try to compensate for that during today and tomorrow. I'd like to share with you my ideas, why I'm concerned about energy in Ukraine, why I'm personally involved in that, why it excites me more than civil service reform. I don't want in 1 year, at the end of the year, to see the exchange rate 40 hryvnias per $1 or even higher. I don't want my daughter, when she grows up and gets a passport and taxpayer certificate, at the same time suddenly she realizes that she owes to foreign creditors. I'm afraid to imagine even how much, unless we do changes. Because now, based on different estimates, every one of you, I mean the citizens of Ukraine, owes approximately $1,500 to $2,000. And if we also calculate the percentage of working population, this will increase to about 5,000. So we reached the bottom. And the reforms are inevitable. This is positive. Now let's discuss. Yes, in the gas sector, it's true. In the energy reform, there are many advantages for the people who are involved in that, in the governments, the experts, and so on. So-called roadmap for reform is well known. It's the third energy package, which is enforced in the EU member states. These are regulations which unify and describe the rules that should act in the energy markets. We have many of them. I'll not discuss them now. I just want to say that the field for the discussion of the politicians in Ukraine is limited. You need just to take it and do it. Discussing the gas sector. It's a very popular topic, especially before winter. All of you remember the previous year. I'd like to remind you about some facts. By the end of the previous year, the international reserves of our country were equal to about $20 billion, and after the winter, after we spent for oil and gas approximately 8.6 billion only for oil and gas, we spent about 8.6 billion for a payment for imported gas and to cover its deficit that is formed in particular by non-market tariffs before the tariffs were increased. So the incumbent governments and the future ministers, regardless of how the elections will take place, if the cabinet ministers will be changed, there is no choice, so they have to do it. What they have to do very quickly. In the oil and gas market, we have huge behemoth, which has to be reformed. It's huge, it's cumbersome. And the most important, what should be done, is to reduce the deficit. Because all experts we work with, for example, EBRD, European Bank for Construction and Development, when they review the company, they see its potential. They're sincerely surprised how this company may be loss-making. It should be very profitable, but the irresponsible and social populism attitude to tariffs led to the fact that I don't remember when this company demonstrated some profits in the past. I agree. Now I'd like to quickly discuss the electricity market. Everything is very funny there. A few people know that the volume of this market is 115 billion hryvnias a year. This is good money, so to say. And all this market is regulated and managed by the state or by the state-owned companies. Based on different estimates, it is open, it is competitive, up to 10% of it is competitive. And this means that senior officials and employees of state-owned companies always are able to keep something for themselves in their hands when they annually redistribute this amount of money. So the recipe is very simple. The current government is quite successful in that they drafted the bill on the electricity market, which is fully in line with the third energy package. And it means full change of the model. Today it looks like all generators produce to the only one state-owned company, and then it distributes according to some secret algorithm. We need to move away from this model. We need to have regular market relationships between the generators, between producers of electricity and buyers of electricity. And for the population, the key advantages are the selection of supplier, the choice of supplier, the increase of quality, and long-term they can choose the supplier of electricity that offers the best price. We don't need to deceive ourselves that it will happen as soon as possible, that we will see the decrease of tariffs. It will not happen, but if we talk about 5 or 7 years down the road, it is possible. And finally, I'd like to quickly discuss the tariffs. I will not spend too much time on the values and how much is the fair price today. Is it fair? I'd like to discuss the following message. When we have the next election, please think that when any politician or someone else, some political technologist, the advertisement says that we will reduce tariffs or will not increase tariffs, you should not be happy about that. You should be concerned about that. You should be cautious about that, and this should cause the opposite reaction from you. It should create opposition in you. I address to young people who are ready to change their mentality and thinking and attitudes. We still pay this price anyway. In one form or another, the gas was cheaper by 3 times, the electricity was cheaper by 2 times. No one paid attention to the energy efficiency of our equipment or to the bulbs. We did not care because the average bill was 100 hryvnias, no problem. But we all were paying for that through other goods, indirect taxes. My message is, anyway, we will be charged, but they will charge more, and they will do it so smartly that we will not understand that. So I would like to budget, to make the budget for my family on my own. I like to decide what to spend money for. I don't need pseudo discounts from the government, which says, okay, we'll make it cheaper for you because you're Ukrainian. We have own production of gas and we'll subsidize it for you. You don't need to pay so expensively. Don't believe that this is cheap populism. Just think about that. If you're offered iPhone with a discount, this is possible. You can have the state-targeted program and enter it into the national budget, but then the tax may grow. The income tax will grow from 15 to 17% for some reason. Don't believe populists. Think when you are offered free cheese in the mousetrap. Thank you. It's offered not in the mousetrap, then we find out it's the mousetrap. Now I'd like to give the floor to Eugeniy Kapinus. Eugeniy is our colleague. We think alike. Eugeniy is head of Coordinating Center of Reform. This is the place from which most experts come from who cooperate with our center. We listed some issues, to put it mildly, about the size of the state, about social areas, education, healthcare, energy. There are 2 other huge gaps in the ship called Ukraine. Eugeniy, what are those holes? I'd like to start with 2 points mentioned by the colleagues. First, what was mentioned by Sergey. We have to estimate how rich we are as the state, how ready are we to pay what we pay now. And second, as Anton said, we should not believe the populism. Now everyone can see that there are vivid discussion of common social contribution that de facto puts pressure on our business, our entrepreneurs. When we talk to business about the problems, one of the first ones was a single social contribution they pay. Social insurance tax they pay or they don't pay based on different estimates. Up to 50% of business is in shadow. I'd like to discuss why we have this situation and what are the reasons. In the past, I'd like to give just some example. We invited to Ukraine a Bulgarian vice prime minister to help. He managed to reduce the social insurance tax by 50% in his country. When she arrived and looked at our social security system, she said, you know, if we take a scale and overlay it on the Bulgarian economy, I guarantee that we will not survive even 1.5 months. The state would be bankrupt and so would never be able to rise again. Ukraine is a strong country. This is why we can afford it. But somehow it proves that people don't feel it. Why? If we look
into the costs that we have nowadays, Sergey was speaking of the activities about the use of budgetary resources. We need to look carefully into how we use our taxes that everybody pays. Why you cannot buy official salary? Why nowadays we have the burden higher than in the Europe? However, people cannot expect something happens to the mic. No? Why people cannot expect a good salary and a good pension? The answer is very simple. Because the government undertakes a commitment which are well exceeded, populistic. In particular, in the year 2004, a nice norm was accepted that all of the norms, regardless of whether people have worked, will be up to the minimal subsistency level. It means that regardless of people did nothing and have never worked, the government still pays him or her. It also means that if people were involved in business, never paid into a pay-go system, the government still has to pay. Our belief is a pay-as-you-go system must indeed be a pay-go system. People should think, what do they pay? It must be in their interest, and the government should only pay for those things that were contributed within the contributions. According to Sergey Marchenko, we have 35 billion money that we paid as a unified social tax in order to cover such costs. Such costs are quite numerous. If you look at it, in addition to that, we pay special pensions. Very arguable question. How much from their money of pension fund should be covered? How much is paid for to cover the other costs? There is a question. Do we have to pay for certain politician who has taken a populistic decision was from our own pocket? Or should we plan government expenditures based on what they can cover, and cover only what they can cover? If you look into our system of social insurance, administrative one, is a unique thing. We took it by the principle of the German model. However, in the German model, there is a specificity. They have rather efficient trade unions. They indeed defend the workers. They do things, and there is also efficient business which defends its rights. And that system works there. Our system is different. There are 4 foundations which are absolutely independent, which are managed by trilateral system, tripartite system, government, employers, and trade union. It means that 4 structures have the vertical from central level to the grassroots level. 4 structures provide for very good employment of people. This is the most positive thing of that structure. However, we have visited one of the rayons, we have visited 4 funds, we are visiting one, and the director tells us, well, we have a problem. Which problem? So, in our fund there must be 5 people, and I only have 3 people. What does it mean to you? What kind of employment, what kind of benefits? 300 benefits paid throughout the month. Do you know, is a problem? Is something happened? I have to travel myself and see what happened. And we have, in every rayon, there are 4 funds like that. In every rayon, we have a terrible terrible burden, administrative burden. What does it mean? That the fund, just for the administrative costs, spends 6 to 15%. It doesn't exist globally, because globally people save money. The money to maintain such funds is just 1 to 2%. It's a tough norm. Nobody can do that. Therefore, we suggest in our system of social insurance to turn it into another model. We keep saying that there must be a second level, but it must happen when the government will stop paying us up to the pension fund. If we have such a system, we won't have the second tier, the second pillar at all, because the government has to pay its costs from their pocket, rather than from the pocket of each of our employees. The second question I would like to raise on our companies. We have the economics, which is a unique system. Just prohibited state-owned companies where our employees have to work, according to the law, are 1,800 size. 1/3 are on the stage of liquidation or just exist on paper, as the government still keeps it for themselves. For 15 years, we cannot reduce that list, and we cannot privatize those sites so that they become part of the economy, develop economy, provide jobs, generate jobs, and generate additional product, value added. Regretfully, in line with our estimates we held in the center, just around 200 sites are strategic that they have to kept in our government sector. Everything else the government spends for maintenance, for servicing. Those resources are inefficient and give no opportunity for economic development of such sites. Unless the system of administration is the government changes of both social funds as well as the government property, it means that the resources we cannot say the resources will ever be efficient, including those we pay. I would support Sergey. I would say everybody pays resources, everybody maintains some government agency, some particular sector, some particular fund, and so on and so forth. I am against paying money and using money we paid is used inefficiently. We against forcing the business to pay in the grey way, unofficially, their salaries, causing that in the future we'll have a minimal opportunity to receive any support if it is necessary. For that, it's necessary to do systemic reform. It's also necessary to do a political will that would enable doing such reforms, and I hope the center will help doing that and will also give the products that will be realized in the future. Finally, I would like to say that actually we have here to the direction of the main strikes, the direction where obviously Ukrainian reformists can and should manifest courage and wit, because it's fearful. It's actually a year ago when I sequestered the budget, I was terrified, so I was just doing the exercise. Walking in the shoes of the minister. Of course, nobody is prepared for that. Anyway, we can see where we should and should do it differently from the way they do it today. Will the incumbent government will do it? I'm not sure. As our objectives are obvious, this is not really unimportant, because efficiency of the Revolution of Roses, efficiency of government and president who came to power after the Revolution of Roses, were also defined by those themes. Being in the opposition, periodically being in the government, understood what to do. They understood how to fight against corruption. Therefore, the activities for fighting against corruption in Georgia were immediate and monumental. Therefore, even not hoping that nowadays it will be all implemented, seeing the map, the roadmap, seeing the objectives, obviously, this is not really little. This gives the hope that we can still build a normal country. And again, that platform Mr. Paschabe was talking about, which is an appropriate Soviet traditionalist platform. It can be replaced with a modern platform, by the modernized one, and causing prosperity of the society and the individuals. Thank you. Friends, we went beyond the agenda, therefore the questions can be asked in the lobby. Congratulations with the beginning, and we shall win. I have a brief announcement. On your brochures you can find the map of places, so that we can productively have lunch. 2 o'clock we expect to be back here. We have hard talk genre. We expect Sasha Borovic from the team of Mikhail Saakashvili. We expect Sergey Marchenko to moderate, hot talk moderated by Denis Davidenko. See you back soon.